we did a thing. We decided that it was time for our sweet 12-year-old Cadence to get a dog of her own. Now, this was a really big decision for our family. We already had 7 people, a dog and an elderly cat to care for at the time that we had made this decision, but our girl needed a dog. She needed the responsibility, she needed the companionship, and honestly, I think that all of us need that kind of unconditional love that comes with having a pet like that. Well, as life would have it, we ended up with not 1 dog, but 2. We have 2 new additions to our family, and I'd like to introduce you to Coda and Daisy. First, I'd like to introduce you to Coda. Coda is our chocolate lab. He's 4 years old, and he's our sporty guy. And when I say sporty, I mean that all he wants to do is play ball all the time. Eat food, play ball, play ball, play ball, eat food, play ball. He has chosen Michael as his very best friend. So lucky Michael gets to take many, many work breaks and go outside and play ball with Coda. Coda really is just that kind of guy who just really wants us all to get along and play ball. Can't we just all get along and play ball? Michael has to spend so much time throwing a tennis ball for this dog that he had to go onto Amazon and buy a sun hat. Because we're in Oregon, we have sun now. That's a thing. And this hat, I just want you to know, have you ever tried to buy a hat online? It is very difficult, and I do not recommend it. Now, I think the hat is kind of adorable on my husband, but my 12-year-old assures me that it is not. It is, in fact, not adorable. But having already raised 2 people through 12-year-olds, and having been a former 12-year-old myself, I can handle that kind of criticism and negativity in my life. So that's Coda. He just wants to play ball and get along. Now, Daisy. Daisy is our very sweet 2-year-old golden retriever. Now, Coda and Daisy came as a bonded pair. They were in a rough situation with some dog hoarding happening, and they were not going to be separated. So luckily, we got to get both. Daisy's a golden retriever. Coda's a chocolate Labrador retriever. So Daisy has these little crinkles in her ears that just make my heart go pitter-pat. She is the sweetest, most darling thing you have ever met. She immediately took to Cadence, thank goodness, because that was kind of the whole point. And she's been following Katie around like a puppy dog ever since we got her. Here's the thing, though. We noticed right away that she has a hard time trusting people. She particularly has a hard time trusting men. And we have learned recently she really doesn't like men in ugly hats. I mean, she really doesn't like men in necessary and prudent and slightly adorable hats. Because of her trust issues, it's a really big honor when Daisy rolls over on her backs and lets you rub her belly. And it took about a month. We've had them about a month. Michael just was able to do that for the first time. It's taken a lot of us telling her over and over again and showing her by the way we interact with her and with each other that she's safe, that she's in a safe place, and that it's okay now. She's in a safe place. When we first got her, Daisy would literally growl at anyone who walked into the room. Yesterday, I walked through the room with a piece of paper, and she got scared. She got startled and ran away. It's hard to imagine what her life might have been like to create this level of anxiety and fear, isn't it? Here's the thing, though. Here's what I love. I love being able to look out and feel from you at home, to be able to feel your compassion that you have for this sweet dog. I'd like you to take a moment and take a breath and anchor that compassion in your body, in your heart, and in your mind, right? Did you have to generate that compassion for Daisy? Did you have to think, if only I knew her story, then I could have unconditional compassion for her? No, but we do that with each other sometimes, don't we? A lot of judgment till I know what you're going through, right? We don't have to do that with each other either. We also don't have to do that with ourselves. This level of compassion is automatic. One of the very best things in my life is watching an animal like Daisy learn about safety. Because when she knows she's safe, then her true nature can come out, her playful nature. Reverend Shannon talked about a couple of weeks ago, our playful nature. It's really we're only able to live from that place when we're feeling safe, right? Daisy will hop up on the couch for snuggles, or she'll very quietly sneak up to the children's bedrooms and bring down a stuffed animal to just lay on the floor and snuggle with, right? She just delights us with her gentle ways. But all of that, we only got to know, all of that only came out once she knew that she was safe. And of course, that's true for all of us. How many of us have ever gone to a party and just quietly stood and eaten cheese in the corner until you finally got up the courage to go talk to someone or just to leave? I'm the only cheese eater? Thank you. Thank you. Hey. You know, given every awesome thing that you have ever learned about yourself, why wouldn't you just trot into that party and introduce yourself? Hey, I'm here. I want to get to know you, right? We don't do that because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe for me. Whew. In the world that we're experiencing today, safety is at play in ways both large and small. You know, when I saw Reverend Masando this morning, he sat down in my office and he said, I'm really scared for the people of Haiti. And I said, I'm really scared for the women and children in Afghanistan. You know, I've been scared for my son Alex since birth, when you suddenly realize that there are these people walking around with your heart over there and you have no control over them. People with my heart. My daughter's over there. This safety thing, it's everywhere. And what happens when our safety gets triggered in ways that are more or less appropriate? I may have a story about that happened to me very recently. One thing that my daughters and I look forward to every year is back to school shopping and going to the office store and completely geeking out over office supplies, organizational things, Post-it notes, picking just the right pen. Like, this is something we literally look forward to every year. And I was so grateful that on Thursday, our governor put out the new mask mandate, because I knew we could go do one normal thing, just go school supply shopping. And I could feel like we were safe, because I assumed that we were all operating under the same agreement, that when we are indoors, we will all wear a mask. I thought we were all operating under that agreement. So imagine my chagrin. 20 minutes in, we've got a cart full of stuff, and Elizabeth has like this board thing under one arm, and I don't know what that plastic thing was that you had under the other. So like, there we are, geeking out, and I look up, and from where I'm standing, I can see 7 customers and 3 masks. And I walk over to the manager and I say, excuse me, did you know that there's a mask mandate in Oregon that started today? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, are you aware? At this point, I see my daughters like slowly start to head for the far aisles. Are you aware that there are currently customers in your store who don't have masks on? And he says in all his wisdom, yeah. Here's the thing. Spiritual growth means that now you are ashamed after the fact when your safety stuff explodes all over the person in front of you. And I'm just going to let you know that that's exactly what happened. My mama bear went crazy on that man. God bless him. And I used to be someone down like that in 30 seconds flat. I'm not proud of it anymore. However, I was not feeling safe. I wasn't feeling safe for myself. I wasn't feeling safe for my children. I wasn't feeling safe for the other customers. Was it my job to mama bear on that man? I don't know. We'll explore that at a later date and time. But here's what I do know. When I am not feeling safe in any way, shape, or form, it shows up in my behavior. It shows up in my words. It shows up in my behavior. The same is true of you. I'd like you to think about this concept of safety. Like you have a concept of safety. And I'd like you to imagine it as like a block of wood that resides like right about here, your solar plexus. Just imagine you have this block of wood inside of you. You can imagine what shape it is, what color it is, how is it made out of hardwood or softwood? That's up to you. But imagine that you have this block of wood inside of you and it represents safety. Now, as a small child, you had a really important job to do when you were between the ages of 1 and 3. And that job is categorization. You categorized things. Learning your colors was a really big deal because you needed to categorize. It's part of how structured development is to learn how to categorize. So you started to gloriously toddle around and categorize everything that you saw. Red, black, good, bad, happy, sad. Oh, that feels good. Oh, that doesn't feel good. And you internalized all of these things. It was something that happened for the benefit of your brain, and it's something that happened for the benefit of your emotional development as well. This is a good thing. But here's what happens. You're a small child toddling around with this safety developing inside of you, and life happens. Maybe your parents were more or less skilled at making you feel safe. Maybe you grew up silently and passively internalizing messages from our media about what is good and bad, right? And all of these things, every single one of them, puts a little dent in that block that is your safety. All of it. This happened with Daisy, our sweet golden retriever, right? She internalized whatever it was about men and hats and papers and people walking into the room suddenly. She internalized all of that, and it came out as barks and growls and fear and anxiety, right? Well, you did the same thing. And our challenge as spiritually maturing people is to ask ourselves, when we start to bark and growl, oh, where is my safety being challenged? Where am I being challenged? The really fascinating thing to me, just as an aside, Coda and Daisy had the exact same experience of life. But Coda's safety is almost intact, not quite, but it's almost intact. Why is that? Why is that? I think it has to do with our innate personalities and sensitivities, and he really just wants to play ball. Like, really? He doesn't care. So, here you are. At whatever age you're at whatever spiritual development you're at, with whatever your building block of safety is in whatever shape that it's in. And for some of you, it might be in really good shape, and I celebrate that with you. For some of you, you might be wondering if that block has just been completely chipped away. For most of us, we're somewhere in between, right? We have our dents and our bruises, but we're doing all right. Well, here's what I want you to know. That sense of safety, that sense of self, that can be healed. And here's how I know that I know that I know. There is a divine pattern that block was made from. Call it the blueprint, right? There was a blueprint that is embedded in your soul, and it cannot be moved or removed or displaced or replaced in any way. That divine pattern is still there, has always been there, and it is not affected by the things that affected your sense of safety in your humanity. In fact, it's whole and it's perfect and it's complete, and it is yearning to express as you right now. So how do we do that? How do we learn to live from that divine pattern and stop associating quite so much with our human patterns that are more or less intact? Right? Well, lucky for you, I have talking points. First of all, the first thing I want to invite you to do when you are in that moment and you feel the stuff, and it may or may not be exploding in public on the poor man at Office Depot in front of your daughters who are quietly slinking away. Here's the first thing. Go to compassion. Find your compassion. Remember when you first heard about Daisy, how easy it was to access that compassion in you? Make it so that it is that easy to access that compassion for yourself. And when you act out unreasonably because someone or something touched an old hurt, instead of heading to shame, remember last week, Reverend Masando taught us that shame is that thing that says, I am bad. Instead of heading to that, we can acknowledge our guilt. I did something bad, and we can make amends, right? Well, bless my soul. Look what I did. I had better go clean that up, right? Compassion. Because what I have learned about myself, and maybe this is true of you too, is that when I'm not in that compassion for myself, then what I'm probably in is defensiveness, right? And I can build a case about all the reasons why that man was very wrong. And it's a good case too. I'll tell you about it in the car on the way home. I can. Or I can move into compassion for myself, recognize, oh, of course I acted out. I wasn't feeling safe. Now, what am I going to do about it? Right? And we can do this in ways that are both big and small. We can do this about the man at Office Depot. I should stop saying Office Depot. Trademark, hashtag. We can do it about that. We can do it about the women and children in Afghanistan. What are we going to do about that? Right? But we come at it from a place of compassion. A place of compassion. Number 2. And this was the biggie for me this week, y'all. I want you to recognize that pattern in you, any of those patterns in you that may be acting out all over your life, they want to heal. They don't want to stay stuck. They aren't interested in fighting you or holding you back or even protecting you anymore. They also are yearning to express that divinity that you were put here to be. They want to heal. There's nothing stopping it. Once you know that thing in you, that pattern in you, that it wants to heal, it changes everything. You don't have to work with it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to ask it what its mother didn't give it. Although you can, and I have, and I will again, because sometimes you do. It wants to heal. It wants to heal. The same way your body wants to come back into alignment when it's ill, and it does everything that it can to come back into alignment. Your body, its natural state is to come back into harmony. That's all your body is doing in any moment of any day. The same is true of your soul. And anything in you that feels less than, not enough, it wants to heal too. It too is the divine expressing as you. Well, the third thing you can do, gather up your compassion, realize that those patterns want to heal, and it doesn't have to be so hard. The next thing that you do is you teach it of greater truth. Just like with our sweet Daisy, how every single day, multiple times a day, we tell her, oh, love, you're safe. And we teach her not only with our words, but with our actions, with our tone of voice, with how we treat each other in the home, right? And she's slowly learning that she's safe. Well, the same is true of you. The invitation is for you to begin to notice if you're not feeling safe. And this is true of anything. If you're not feeling worthy, if you're not feeling abundant, if you're not feeling loved, right? The thing to do is to notice begin to notice all of the places that you are. Because when you affirm something, you are saying, yes, universe, more of that. Affirm means to say yes. If you vote affirmative, that's a yes, right? So every time you affirm the good in your life, it's a yes vote for more of that thing. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't deal with anything that is not yet safe over here. We don't just sit on the porch and sing happy songs and hope that everything fixes itself. Although we can sit on the porch and sing happy songs if that's what y'all want to do, especially in this pandemic, right? But you can teach yourself by showing up in the safety that you already have, in the enoughness, in the abundance, in the grace, right? And say, yes, please, more of that. So teach it a new truth. And finally, in order to bring forth that pattern of perfection that is already within you, in order to live from that place that is the blueprint of your soul, you have to befriend it. And the only way that I know to befriend it, and y'all, this is all I've ever talked about in any talk I've ever given. There's only one thing to do. And it's your spiritual practice. Thank you. I realize I need to talk more because clearly y'all haven't gotten the message. Listen, Reverend Shannon and Reverend Masando have literal decades of education and experience in meditation, and they are going to teach you things that are going to blow your mind. I don't have that. All I know is just to sit in the silence, and to come back to that chair again and again, and to sit in the silence, and to notice your clever mind. Notice the thinking and simply let it be what it is, and to just keep sitting. And to notice your tender heart and all of the feelings, and to let it be what it is, and to just keep sitting. And eventually, what I know, eventually, you begin to cherish the moments in between the thinking and the feeling. And in those moments, you meet spirit. You meet that divinity that is indwelling you. And that, my friends, is how you befriend it. When you are able to find comfort in those moments of silence, what happens is you come to a place of contentment. And it's not the kind of contentment that is settling for second best. Practitioner Shelley doesn't play that. No, it's the kind of contentment that says, I am enough, I have enough, and I'm willing to grow. There's more than enough money. There's more than enough love. There's more than enough time. And right here, right now, I am willing to experience that in my life, right? That happens in partnership with the divinity that you meet in the silence. In that place where you meet that divinity and you become willing to partner with it, that willingness does something in you. That willingness is everything. Because that willingness is an invitation to wholeness. Willingness is an invitation to wholeness. It's that desire for healing, and eventually it becomes a surrender to the divinity within you that is yearning to express as your life. And this is the revelation of truth that is healing. That's it. We talk about, Ernest Holmes says there's no healing, only truth waiting to be revealed, right? What is that? What does that mean? It means this. Your willingness meets your surrender, and you allow it room and access in your life, in your heart, in your mind, in your relationships, in your money. And that becomes the foundational building block of your life, not that sweet, dear, dented sense of self. You can still love that. You can cherish it. And it might still act out when you are school supply shopping. And that's okay. But that doesn't become the foundation of what you are living from anymore. Isn't it glorious? It's glorious. Okay, I'm going to close with this. I'm in a wonderful gardening group on social media because I am a terrible gardener. Thank God for Terry Christopher and her green thumb. All her fingers are green. Anyway, I'm in a wonderful gardening group on social media, and one day I stumbled on this picture. It's a sweet little pink flower. I don't know, is it a Gerber daisy? I don't know what it is. But it's bent over. It's broken. And at some point, that flower lifted its face to the sun after it was broken, and a sweet little bee landed on it. And the poster wrote this: I was looking closely at this damaged flower, thinking about how something came along and bent her over. Being a fighter, she turned her face toward the sun and kept on blooming. Then the bee landed. The bee didn't care that she was broken. He probably couldn't even see the damage. He was focused on her beauty. Keep on blooming. Just keep on blooming, my loves, because you are needed and you are wanted. You are beautiful, and you've been called to this place on this planet at this time for a very sacred and holy purpose. You are needed. You are loved. Just keep blooming.